Hello, dear viewers. Let us talk today about the things President Trump could not and would not tell you about. And this is not about his taxes, and this is not about his 2.6 billion income he received last year. And it's not about 1.4 billion US dollars he received from crypto last year because he simply did not know about that. But there is a thing which he knows and which he wears very well, and this is about the current situation with the supply of weapons to Ukraine, which is under constant aggression and constant attacks from the side of Russian Federation. This week, a couple of days ago, we experienced one of the most terrible attack coming from Russia. Dozens of missiles were sent to the country, and only a few we were able to target and to strike on our territory. You can ask why? The answer is very simple. Just because we don't have enough weapons. We don't have enough Patriots. The limited supply which we used to have in the past is already over. How you can strike those missiles which were sent to your country without this ammunition, without these weapons? It's next to impossible. That's why currently 30 deaths were already reported by our Ukrainian government. And the number can easily increase because the ruins of these big apartment complexes are still clean. So the process is still ongoing. And it's very true that the reason for that is very simple. United States of America does not have enough storage of such ammunition, precisely Patriots and also Tomahawks, after this Iranian crisis or Persian war or war against Iran. What has happened during that time? Significant portion of ammunition was already lost or was already used. For example, 50% of Patriots which United States used to have in its hand before this Iranian war were used during this war. 30% of Tomahawks were used during this war. Doesn't mean that United States is able to increase their own supply, own production of such weapons? In my view, definitely not. And here we are coming to a much broader picture, a much more broader story. And this story is related to rare earth. In order to produce all these military weapons, you need to have rare earth. And this rare earth is really a significant portion and absolutely must for such production. For example, we know for sure that United States lost several F-35. And have you ever heard that in order to produce F-35, you need to use roughly around 500 kilos of rare earth. 500 kilos of rare earth in order to produce only one F-35. In order to produce Patriots, you also need to have rare earth. And in order to produce Tomahawks, you also need to have in your hands rare earth. Then, of course, we are coming to the question, where United States is able to get such rare earth? And the answer is simple and at the same time is terrible for all of us. The main supply of such rare earth is coming currently from China. From China. What that means? It means that United States is absolutely dependable, at least in the short and medium run, from the situation with China. China feels it very well, of course. They understand that there is a shortage of such rare earths for United States. On the other hand, they understand that they are the main supplier of such rare earth on our planet. And definitely, they play their own cards, and their card is very strong. The card is export quota. This is how they call it, export quotas. Now, in order to have a permission to supply rare earths to international market, meaning also to United States, you need to have an okay from the Chinese government. And Chinese government is not very fast in giving such permission. Why should they do that? Of course, you can speculate on all other aspects related to this issue, whether United States is prepared to take part in possible bad events in South Asia if China is going to start its own efforts in this direction? And if yes, with what? What they are going to have in their hands? Is it possible for them or it's impossible? Because of this, we can read the situation with all these political visits of President Trump worldwide and to China per se, in particular, differently. There is no doubt that one of the big piece in the agenda of Trump during his visit to Xi was exactly the supply of these rare earths. And this story is much more difficult when you think about it in greater details. Before November of this year, November of 2026, US and China have an agreement regarding limitation of trade barriers, which means that no more Trump taxes on Chinese import to the United States, and China is accepting what United States is selling to them, and this is before November. On the other hand, there is another line of this story, and this another line of this story is that since January 1st, Trump declared that the United States is not going to buy any Chinese raw materials, which in my view also means that they are not going to use rare earths produced in China. So as you can see, there is kind of deadlock situation. On one hand, Chinese is willing to continue, and they agreed with the United States that they are going to continue their exports to the United States until November of this year. However, since January 1st of next year, which is, in 6 months, even less, it's going to be prohibited any Chinese imports to the United States of America. How you could deal with such situation, how you will be able to renew your storage of weapons during this time if, again, you don't have this rare earth. And then, from the different point of view, we can look on all these efforts, at least two efforts, of President Trump and his administration regarding finding the way of supply of such rare earth. Greenland, the first and the most famous one, and Ukraine, the second one, and also very famous one, especially after these terrible talks in the Oval Office of the White House. Remember when President Zelensky had this meeting with President Trump, and when it was a complete disaster, which was filmed by main and leading media resources, and also demonstrated to everybody in the world. Trump is looking for alternative supplies. However, for anybody, especially for the person who used to work in investment business as Trump, it's very clear that to think about the project and starting the project and getting some benefits of the project, you need to spend a certain amount of time. And when we are talking about rare earths, no matter are we talking about Greenland or we are talking about Ukraine, you need to spend huge amount of money at initial stage. This is the first thing. And the second one, you have to spend certain amount of time before you start an extraction. And people from this area are saying that approximately, in the very best case scenario, it might take you up to 4, even 5 years. So, which means that during this period of time, Trump has no other alternative as to keep relatively well relations with China, with Chinese, with President Xi, because he wants to restore his storage of weapons. On the other side, let us ask ourselves, do we really believe that that kind of message, that kind of information might be publicly pronounced by anybody from the side of White House or President Trump? Do we really believe that it might happen? It happens, then it immediately shows to everybody the weakness, at least in this field, of the current administration. It might show the weakness of the strategic thinking of the current administration, at least in this field, in this area. However, in the meanwhile, Ukrainian citizens, Ukrainian cities are under attack from Russia because we are not able to get that kind of supply of Patriots from any other parts of the world. And in fact, the real alternative for Ukraine now is to produce that kind of weapons internally. And that's why these talks about a permission, receiving a permission to Ukraine from the United States for that kind of production internally in the country, in Ukraine, is crucially important. I do believe that this is an important issue which we have to think about when we are talking regarding the current situation in Ukraine, its ability to deal with this Russian aggression. If you like this video and if you want to continue with me, please do not forget to subscribe to my channel. Also, your likes are very welcome. And obviously, any comment you have, please put after this video. Thank you very much. Peace and good health for all of you. And see you very soon. Ciao. Bye bye.